I'm Dale Striklur. I'm a farmer and agriculture consultant from Kansas in the very center of the United States.
You were here now in Bulgaria for 2 days, now is the third day, but these last 2 days you were on the field with farmers. So what did you see, what did you observe?
What I saw, the farms we visited were people who have been no-tilling and cover cropping for a number of years. And what I saw on their farms was proof that these concepts work here, because they had corn, and despite very limited rainfall, they had corn that was green, was going to make a very good yield. And on the way to these farms, we saw dead corn everywhere because of the limited rainfall. So it just shows that these practices work.
And can you give some specific guidance for the farmers more generally? Because now you just visit 2 regions of Bulgaria, we have a little bit more, which is with a different climate and so can you give some general advices? What they're supposed to do?
The principles of no-till and cover cropping are universal because they're natural principles. It's the same principles that work in nature all around the planet. So everybody says it won't work here. The laws of physics don't change at the boundary of their farm. They work everywhere. The techniques are different, but the principles are the same everywhere. And so to make the principles, first of all, you have to learn the principles, and then you have to learn the techniques to make the principles work in your location.
If a farmer wants to apply a no-till, what he should do? Strip till first or start directly with a no-till? Because in Bulgaria we have this meaning that for the first 5 years you need to do strip till, you need to do something, and then maybe you should go no-till.
Okay, so it depends a little on your equipment, depends a little bit on the quality of your soil, and whether or not you're cover cropping. There's I won't say it's a myth, because sometimes it is true, that it takes several years for your soil to improve under no-till. That's sometimes true, but it depends on how you manage. You can make that process much, much faster, because what you want to happen is you want your soil to improve. When your soil gets better, no-till gets much, much easier. Some of the problems that occur with no-till, you can have more difficulty placing seed in the soil because the soil will get hard initially before it eventually gets soft again. You have to build organic matter, humus, in order for that soil to soften. That happens much faster with cover crops because you're adding humus in the form of the cover crops. You know, you can have the seed trench, fail to close after you plant. That happens much easier when you add humus to the soil. So adding cover crops can accelerate your soil improvement process. And so instead of 5 years, it can be 1 or 2 years. And so that's been my experience. I personally started cover cropping and no-till at the same time. My very first year, I raised the best crops that farm had ever produced in history. So I was fortunate, but I used the practices together instead of separately.
And can we say that there are good crops and bad crops? Because for a few years now, actually, we're starting with these crops to put something on the field, because before that, the field was like without anything. You mentioned that just to save some water and moisture and that kind of things. And you said,
yeah, you have fallow. Yes, we used to think that of course, the idea of fallow is to rest the soil, to accumulate moisture so that we can have a more successful grain crop afterwards. But when you fallow, what we did, there's been multiple studies done in the U.S., and I assume the same principles apply everywhere. But in our conditions, we would harvest wheat in the drier regions, harvest wheat, plant corn 10 months later. and grow nothing during almost a year to store moisture so the corn crop would be successful. During that 10 months, they measured the rainfall and measured the moisture remaining in the soil when they planted the corn. Only 25% of the moisture was accumulated. That means during that 10 months, we wasted 100% of the sunlight and 75% of the rainfall. How is that efficient? That's not an intelligent form of agriculture. We need to improve. We need to do better than that. We receive two things for free in agriculture, sunlight and rainfall. Why would we waste 100% of the sunlight and 75% of the rainfall as a routine practice? So we need to do a better job of managing our moisture and of capturing our sunlight.
Yeah, you mentioned it at the beginning, but another belief is that no-till is not for every soil. Is this a myth?
That's like saying exercise is not for every person. You know, they say, well, no-till doesn't work on heavy clay soils. That's like saying exercise doesn't work for every overweight person. It's obviously more difficult, but those are precisely the soils where you see the most benefit over time, because they're difficult because they're heavy clay. It's hard to, that's everything that's wrong with soil is cured by humus, organic matter. How do you get more humus? No-till, stop tilling, add cover crops. It fixes every soil. And I've heard that saying, no-till isn't for every soil. There are some soils in which it's more difficult, but again, those are precisely the same soils that benefit the most. Those are the type of soils that I grew up on. Very heavy clay.
And last question, in Bulgaria, the land is spread out and most of the farmers sign one-year contracts. So how does this actually one-year contract corresponds to the no-till technology? So how we can make no-till when you have the land only for 1 year?
Okay, so we have, my father grew up as a tenant farmer. You know, when he owned no land to begin with, so all of the land he farmed was on rental arrangements. He was a tenant farmer, sharecropper, and it wasn't until later that he was able to buy land. So he made his business by making the landowner very, very happy. And with no-till, there's the risk that things may not look so good the first year. So it's very, very important to communicate with your landowner what the process is and how you're doing them a favor by improving their land over the long run.